Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is my New York. Once they were lions, invincible boys of summer, now buffeted by the brutal winds of autumn. After the Miracle is a poignant look back at an improbable championship 51 years ago and the shadows now looming over the young men who produced it. Author Art Shamsky was one of those young men, a member of the Miracle New York Mets. He takes us on a sentimental journey. Next. Art Shamsky, good to see you again. How are you?
Great, Tony. I don't know. You look great. How did you were able to get a haircut? My hair is just kind of like growing and uncontrollable. You look great.
Well, my cat ate most of it off my. No. Um, this is such a lovely treatment of the 69 Miracle team in many ways, and quite different from anything else I've read about it. And I guess you intended that.
Well, over the history of the 69 Mets, I would venture to say it's probably been the most written about team in sports, in any sport. I think there's probably been over 40 or 50 books written about that team. The basis of the whole book was the fact that we were coming up on the 50th anniversary of the 69 team in last year. And so we knew there was something there. And I wanted to just talk about how we've remained friends and the camaraderie that's lasted this long. One of the problems that we had is that we've lost at that time when we started to do the book about 10 guys from the team, and a few of them were still not really doing well. We started to do a couple interviews, and I said, we've got to get Tom Seaver, who was really the main name on the team at that point, and was such a terrific pitcher. But at that point, he wasn't feeling great and was living out in California and in Calistoga area. And I said, we can't do an interview with him over the phone. We just can't do it. We've got to go see him. He had Lyme disease for over 20 years that had been misdiagnosed, and he was having some memory loss, et cetera, et cetera. And so we decided to make a trip out there. And
All right, let's back up here a little bit. You want to celebrate the 50th anniversary, and you know that there are some important people who aren't going to be able to make it, like Tom Seaver. And you guys decided, you and your writer friend decided, you know what, if he can't come to the celebration, we'll bring it to him.
And in this case, we could have invited any 3 or 4 guys on the team because we had that kind of relationship. But I asked Buddy Harrelson, who was Tom's roommate on the road, and both from California. And Buddy had just announced that he was in early stages of Alzheimer's. I thought it would be therapeutic for him on a personal level, and also for Tom to see each other. And then I asked Jerry Koosman, who was the second best pitcher on that team, and a real character, and somebody that I thought that Tom would love to see. And then the other person was Ron Swoboda, who's another character that everybody knows about. But Ronnie made the great catch in the game that Tom was pitching this game, game 4, I believe.
Straight away for him in the outfield. And there's a drive to right center. Swoboda comes up with it. The tag at third. Here comes Frank Robinson. The game is tied. Ron Swoboda making another sensational catch for the Mets.
You look at the replays of that catch, it's still impossible. You say, there's no way. He cannot catch that ball, even when you look at the replays. He can't catch it.
Well, his great phrase now, Swoboda's, is that some people had a career, I had a catch. So taking Swoboda out there was important, and the real catch to Swoboda and Koosman was that they're so opposite politically, and without going into which politics, what or what there, I just said, I'll get them involved and I can agitate them into having a good time and get them going. So,
well, I'll fill in the blank. Ronnie Swoboda is a liberal, and Jerry Koosman is a hard right conservative. And you
hard
did.
Right. When you say hard, it's hard right. And
yeah,
so it's not difficult to get them going.
And you did, salt the conversation a little.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was part of it.
I hope we can get to some of that. But the point is that you got these guys, you're going to, all the arrangements to make this trip are crazy, but it's done. But in talking to Nancy Seaver, she said, Art, look, you're going to get here, and we don't know what Tom's going to be feeling that day. Is he going to be is he having a good day or a bad day? And you may not be able to see him. And you had one day.
Well, we rolled the dice and we went out on a Friday afternoon. Swoboda came from New Orleans and Kuzman came from Minneapolis, and Buddy, myself, and Eric Sherman flew on the same plane. And we all met around the same time in San Francisco. I called Nancy and I said, "We're here. What do you think?" And this is now about 3:30 in the afternoon. She said, "It's late. I don't think it's a good day. He's not feeling great. Let's hope for tomorrow." Well, tomorrow was the only day we could really do it,
Right.
Because we all had connecting flights and our flights back on Sunday. And so that would have been real difficult. So when we got up Saturday morning, and it was a beautiful day. I said, let's just keep our fingers crossed. And we called and she said, you guys lucked out. Just get up here as soon as you can. He's feeling pretty good. And when we went there and got there, it was just an incredible 8 or 9 hours of spending time with him up in the vineyard. And you know about the vineyard because you've been there. But
it's a magnificent. He's up on a mountain, which, by the way, could he have picked this any better? It's called Diamond Mountain.
Yeah, I mean, it was just unbelievable.
He's so proud of the vines and how hard he works. And let's come back to that. Let's take a quick detour into the '69 season that you guys are all part of. And an observation that I make from your book and following the team, there seemed to be portents. I mean, this was a team that was the lovable losers. That's all they had done, the Mets, lose, from the time they began in '62. And here they come in '69, and there were portents. Writers, some had, as you say in the book, had written, a man will walk on the moon before the Mets win a pennant. And guess what? In July of '69, a man walks on the moon. There were portents. The Black Cat.
Well, there was a lot of things that happened that year, but I want to clarify one thing. I was not with the Mets in those early years when they were losing 100 games every year, so I can't take blame for those early years. When Gil came over, he really set the tone, and he said that we're not going to be that same team, and he really had this vision of us just kind of playing better baseball, finding ways to win, and even though we finished 9th in 1968, you could see signs that this team was better than they had been in the past. So we had great pitching with all those young pitchers.
I think fans might forget that back then there wasn't divisional play. There were 10 teams in the National League East, and as you say, Mets finished 9th.
Yeah, half a game out of last place. So,
but you come '69, and in spring training, Gil says, "Guess what, guys? You're better than you think you are." And
he said that, and guys still kind of scratched their head because we like you said, we played better, but we still were not a really good team, to be perfectly honest. We knew how to lose games. We didn't know how to win games, and that's a science in itself. And Gil Hodges was the person that was instrumental in having us be so cognizant of the fact that we have to find ways to win games, whether they're close or high scoring. And he was absolutely right. And that was the success of that team. We started to play much better baseball, but we all contributed something to the course of the season and the playoffs and the World Series, where everybody did something to help us win a game. And that really was a success of the team.
Well, it's often athletes and reporters often talk about how a team and everybody contributing, and it begins to sound like a cliche and it sounds banal, but in fact, everybody on that team did contribute, including Gil Hodges, of course, the manager. You don't win that World Series in '16, that pennant in World Series, without Gil. And you don't win it with a punch and Judy hitter, Al Weiss, who all of a sudden becomes a slugger in the World Series.
They call him Mighty Mite.
The Mighty Mite. And you don't win it without the glider at third base, Eddie Charles, who would be sitting in the clubhouse writing poetry and songs and smile on his face and scooping up everything at third base and getting key hits.
Eddie Charles is one of the most interesting characters I had ever met. Suffered so much as as a young player in the minor leagues, languished in the minor leagues because of not getting the opportunity because of the color of his skin. But he was such a mild-mannered guy. He was really the glue to the clubhouse. And on top of that, he was a terrific player. I think when they phased him out for whatever reason in the next year when he was 35 years old, he could have played another couple of years. And I think that was a tremendous loss for the Mets.
Tell us a little about his nickname, the Glider.
He got that name from Kuzman, who was pitching one day, and Eddie was this kind of smooth fielding infielder, particularly at third base, and made a play towards the shortstop and threw over the first base. Something about Eddie, I don't know a lot of people know. He always threw a ball, kind of a looping ball over to first base, and always got the runner by a half step. It could have been the fastest runner in the league or the slowest runner in the league, but he always got that guy by a half step. But when he made this play, Kuzman said to him, you kind of glide after the ball. I'm going to call you the Glider from now on. Yeah. And that name stuck with him over the years. And I never called him Ed. I mean, I always called him Glider whenever I called him on the phone or talked to him or anything like that.
And when he would talk to Ralph at Kindness Corner and say, I hit a slider, he said to you or he said to somebody, I always say it's a slider. Nobody knows the difference.
Well, what's funny is that Seb McGraw, another real character on that team, would scream his name out across the room whenever we were at a banquet or something, or even in the clubhouse. He'd yell out, Glider, don't ever throw a slider to the Glider. I mean, the whole room would hear it. It was really funny. And Eddie kind of fed off of it.
That became another slogan, never throw a slider to the Glider.
Yeah.
Tug was quite a character, and you could see it on the mound, you could see it in his performance in the game, the way he conducted himself. But he said so many crazy things. And I like your description of his fastball. He called it the Peggy Lee. What was it? The Peggy Lee fastball?
Well, he didn't. Yeah, he funny thing about Tug, he was ambidextrous. He could throw right or left-handed, and
his so-called Peggy Lee fastball was because, there was nothing there. It just, he threw what he called a fastball, but it just kind of never got there. And batters or people on the team started to think, hey, is that all there is, Tug?
Yeah, that's it.
They couldn't
that was
hit
their
it.
Song. Yeah. He was such a great competitor and a terrific young player coming up in the Mets system, and went on to have some great success with the Phillies after the Mets. So
let's talk a little bit more about those portents. The Black Cat in September, a very big series against the Cubs, and the Black Cat runs on the field and kind of stares down Leo DeRocha, or at least that's the way it looked. And you guys hated Leo DeRocha, didn't you?
Yeah, it was a big rivalry with the Cubs. That was the beginning of that rivalry. First of all, they were a terrific team. They didn't have the great pitching like we had, but they had a starting lineup that was as good as anybody. All of a sudden, I remember Ron Santa was on deck, and this Black Cat comes from underneath the stands and walks around by the batter's box and comes around the on-deck circle and just kind of looks into the Cub dugout and stares at the dugout. And I'm looking at it. I'm looking at Leo DeRocha, and I think he's staring right at Leo DeRocha. I'm thinking if that cat came over to our side of the field into that first base dugout where we were, that would have freaked me out. But he had the presence of mind to go around the on-deck circle and just look into the Chicago dugout. And I have to feel like somebody guided him. Somebody put him. He wasn't a mechanical cat. He maybe I don't know if anybody's ever trained a cat, but he did that, and that's one of the folklores of that team. Here's a funny thing. In the first book I wrote, Tony, called The Magnificent Seasons, I interviewed some of the ground crew members, and to a person, they said to me, you know what, they never saw that cat before that night, and they never saw that cat after that night. So
it was
what does
sent
that
by
mean?
the gods. Sent by the gods.
Somebody had some power that night, and at a year that had a lot of power that in our way. So that was just one of the moments.
I got a kick out of learning something from your book about Al Weiss. Nobody, when you think of the Mets, it's not the first of '69. Al Weiss is not the first name you think of. It's not maybe even the fifth. But Al Weiss, who was like a 220 hitter, his whole career. All of a sudden in the World Series hits like close to 500.
That's a fly ball to deep left, and Buford breaks back now, and it's going, and it is gone for a home run for Al White. And the score is tied at 3-3. The Mighty Might has become the hitting star of the World Series for the New York Mets. That is his 5th hit in this World Series.
And he did it with what kind of a bat, Art?
Yeah, we had gotten these, it's not a toy bat, it was a souvenir bat. One of the bat companies gave it to us, and it was really basically to get some autographs and a memento. He liked the feel of it, and so he used it in the World Series. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about it until we wrote the book. And you know, hitting is a comfort zone. You know, it's getting up there with something that the bat in your hand, it feels good. The stance, it feels good. The balance that you have watching the ball come out of the pitcher's hand. And if you have a bat that feels comfortable, you know, that's a third of the problem. So, or a third of the fix, I should say. He felt good with that bat, decided to use it, never told anybody about it. Never, you know, it was a secret. And quite honestly, I don't know if it was legal or not, to be perfectly honest. But at this point, I don't think they're going to come back and take away the World Series from us.
Let's get back to Diamond Mountain and that magnificent home that Tom and Nancy have up there, and the vineyard.
Well, what's interesting about that whole scenario of him ending up in California is he told me a story and told all of us a story that he was working as a broadcaster in Pittsburgh one day, and he got a call from his mom, and his mom said, "Hi, how you doing? Where are you?" And for a moment, he didn't know where he was. And so that was the moment that he decided that he wanted to get out of whatever he was doing and get out to California. And a dream of his was to get into the wine business. He found this spectacular 100 acres out there in undeveloped land at the time in this beautiful, as you say, mountain area of Napa, California. And he's out there every day pruning the wine, watering, whatever he does. And he doesn't make the wine himself, but he does all you have to do to get it ready to be made into wine. And that's his life now. And we spent all that time out there, except for when we went to lunch and down in the town, all that time walking around the vineyard with him. He had his little pruning scissors there, cutting, doing things, explaining to us how the process worked. And he was in heaven. He was in love with what he was doing. He had a little bench out there. You remember seeing the bench up there by the tree? There was a tree up on the little area up there. And he would take his dogs and sit out there when he got a little tired. But he loves what he's doing. And again, we look back on that day we were able to spend time with him. And I look at it as a blessing because we could have just as easily had a problem that day and not made it. And then we went down, after spending 2 or 3 hours at his house, we went down to the village and had lunch. And he knew some of the people down there. They all knew him. And we had a wonderful lunch where we sat around and reminisced about things that were important to us. And shared these moments that were glorious. And all in all, we spent 8 or 9 hours with him that really makes the book, I mean, what it is. It's not just about Tom, but the fact that we made the trip really kind of made the book.
I want you to tell us your take on that day as you observe in retrospect what you saw and the interaction between him and Buddy, for instance, his former roommate with early onset Alzheimer's, Tom with the effects of Lyme disease and short-term memory. And you have a scene where Tom is just patting Buddy's hand at that restaurant, and smiling. The two are smiling at each other. It's very moving.
Well, it was an incredible time for all of us. We all have stories together with Tom individually and as a team. I played against Tom when I came up with the Cincinnati Reds, and so I saw firsthand how great a pitcher he was, and then playing behind him just added to all that story about how great he was. But Buddy and him had a special relationship. Like I said, they came both from California and were roommates, and they kind of grew up together. They were all kids, so we were all in our early 20s when we got together and then played together and won that championship. And then we got, with Swoboda and Kuzman, who were, saying whatever they wanted to say and do whatever they wanted to do, and had the laughs that we had. Those are cherished moments. And then I hope we came across in the book talking about it. And the good thing is Eric Sherman, who went with me and co-wrote the book, was there to see it. I think, and Eric in his past wrote about the Mets. He wrote a book on Mookie Wilson, wrote a book about Davey Johnson, wrote about the '86 Mets. So he knows Met history. But I think he really got a feel for how close we were as friends and teammates when he made this trip, because you couldn't write that. You couldn't look up in a book and read a story about it. You have to see it personally.
I think you quote Jerry Kuzman saying a kind of philosophical thing. Days are long, years are short. And it's, everybody's kind of encapsulating the feeling, hey, wait a minute. We were the boys of summer in the most impossible summer in New York, implausible. And now we're in our mid-70s and looking back, and boy, it went fast.
Well, we're very lucky to have been part of that team, and I understand that as much as anybody, Tony. I played 13 years, and nobody ever talks to me about the other 12. It's really about 1969. All of us who were part of that team cherish those moments and cherish the fact that we were part of that team, because in reality, our name lives on forever. It's such an incredible thing that happened back there in '69, and the year one was so crazy because the Jets won, we won, and the Knicks won all for the first time, and so the world was upside down, much like it is now. But as you remember, I'm not sure you're in your 70s yet, you might not even remember these things, but you remember how the Vietnam War was tearing this country apart.
Sure.
The city of New York was really in bad shape. Mayor Lindsay was the mayor, and the city was in financial straits, socially, morally, philosophically, all sorts of strikes, assassination. There's so many things happening, and what we did as a team, and the Jets did to some degree, and the Knicks also, we made people feel better about their lives for a brief period of time. And they passed that on to their children and their grandchildren. And there's kids who weren't even born who know about that team. And when I meet them and they meet me, they talk to me about that team, and they know about it from history. And so I'm very happy to have been part of it. And so many things happened to me on a personal level, and to all of us who were part of that team, and all the things that we've done, either collectively or individually, because we were members of that '69 team. So when we get together, we share those moments. And yeah, some of the stories are stretched out a little bit. Some of those home runs went 550 feet instead of barely making it over the fence. And some of the things that, you can listen to stories from guys and all these things. And, it's so great to be able to get back to it. And that team just resonates.
I think Seaver called them great lies.
Yeah, they're always great lies.
Sit around and talk and tell each other.
I'll tell you something. Over the years, I've had 150, maybe 100,000 people come up to me and say, I was at that last game when you won October 16th in 1969 when you won the World Series, and I say that's great, and I say to myself, that ballpark held 53,000 people. So somebody's not telling the truth. So it goes.
Well, I'm going to tell the truth. I was there that day.
I know you were. I know you were.
And I'll never forget it. And the fact that I've been able to know some of you guys, and the fact that I've been able to spend time in Diamond Mountain with Tom Seaver and see his passion for something else besides baseball. I mean, he manifests a passion for the work and the detail. And when I first went there, he pulled out the plans. The vines weren't in yet. Pulled out the plans for what was going to be, and he took me through page by page. This is going to be there. That's going to be here. This is how this works. This is how the drip system worked. And I'm going, oh my God. And you see the passion that made this guy a Hall of Famer. And he's putting the same passion into this new life of his. And
well, let me tell you something. I as I mentioned before, I played against Tom a little bit and then got over as a teammate. And you're exactly right. The passion he had for baseball and the passion he has for for what he's doing now. They're linked together because they form the person that he is.
Yeah.
But I saw Tom, and when I played against him, you knew he was going to be a great pitcher. When I played right field, you played behind him and you knew it was going to be a quick game, and he was, again, a great pitcher. But when I played first base, and this is interesting, Tony, I really saw the greatness in Tom as a pitcher. You're 30 or 40 feet away from him, and you see the focus that he's got getting ready to pitch, and the windup and throwing the ball, and you really on top of that. And that's where I really saw how great a pitcher and competitor he was. And I can totally agree with you in what he's doing now, the passion that he's got and the love he's got for what he does. It's so great to have him be involved in that, because that's what he really loves and what he wants to do the rest of his life. And hopefully it'll be for a few more years. I saw it, and like you saw it, and then being out there with him was and the only thing I can say was just a special time.
Art, it's a delight to, I'm honored. I'm honored to know you. I'm honored to know some of the other players, and it's great to talk to you. This is a delightful, sentimental journey after the miracle, the lasting brotherhood of the 69 Mets. Thank you for this, Art, and thanks for today.
All right, Tony, thank you so much. Always a pleasure.